Hey, listeners, just a quick heads up. This episode may include sensitive material and may not be suitable for children, so listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Jesus, Coffee, and Everything Else. I am one of your hosts, James Klaus,
I am your other host, Jordan Bearden.
and here we have somebody who would like to share their story with Jesus as their hero.
I'm really excited to hear this story. There's so much power in people's testimonies, and we're about to hear from someone right now who's sharing their story as Jesus as their hero. I'm really excited to hear this.
We hope you enjoy their testimony.
Hi, my name's Derek. I would like to share my story with you all and just tell you how Jesus has helped me in my life and been there for me in my life and shown himself faithful and true in my life. I grew up in a Christian home. My parents were divorced when I was really young. My mom worked 3, sometimes 4 jobs when I was a kid to make ends meet. And so we spent a lot of time at my grandparents' home, especially on Friday nights. So we'd hang out with them. And while my mom would clean the church on Saturday mornings, she took us to the Methodist Church. That's where I grew up, in a small town in West Texas. And but somewhere along the way, I'm not sure if it was before or after my parents got divorced, but it was very, very young. I was sexually abused by my father. And after my parents got divorced and during some of the visitation times, my sister was also sexually abused by my father. So things in my life got turned upside down at a very early age. There were just things that were broken before I even met Jesus. When I was about 7, I remember my grandmother she went to the Baptist church. We went to the Methodist church, but somehow I got invited to this event at the Baptist church. It was about a block away from my grandparents' home. So I went to that, and somebody had told me they're going to have this event. It's going to be lots of fun. There will be hot dogs, and I was there for the hot dogs. I was all about getting some grub. It sounded really good, sounded really fun. And so while we were eating our hot dogs, I was just stuffing my face. The speaker at the time was talking about salvation, talking about Jesus. And I was really convicted. I was really captivated by the salvation message. And I ended up giving my heart to the Lord that night. And I was really excited. I was so excited. I just felt different. I felt this change in my heart. So I immediately went home to my grandparents' house. That's where everybody was. And I remember telling my mom, I want to get baptized. I want to get baptized. And I wanted to be obedient and follow what I just learned. It wasn't until several years later that I actually got baptized. The Methodist Church doesn't do the immersion process, so I had to go through some kind of confirmation thing about faith and different things like that, and then they sprinkled water on my head, and I remember that process, but I didn't do the fully obedient baptism till much later in my life. But it was in my heart to do that. But as I said, I was introduced to depraved sexuality before I was introduced to Jesus. So there was some kind of switch inside of me that had been turned on at a very young age. And so I just remember even in kindergarten, really being drawn to girls and just always having lustful thoughts and fantasy type thoughts, different things like that. And I didn't know really what that was. I just knew I was drawn to that, and I couldn't stop thinking about that kind of stuff. And I was always trying to get in relationships, even as a young boy, when that makes no sense to be in a relationship. but I was always trying to have a girlfriend or hang out with the popular people. And throughout my life, I was always really, really insecure. I still struggle with that, but when I was a kid, it was really pronounced. Very insecure, very self-conscious, and no matter how hard I tried, I never could seem to break through this invisible wall that there was to be in the popular crowd and to fit in. I was athletic, so I played all the sports in junior high and high school, but once I served the purpose on the playing field, I was no longer acceptable in the cool kid crowd. So I was just always chasing that moving target. I remember spending a lot of time at my grandparents' house. My grandfather was a great example of a godly father figure. He was always there for us. He would spend time with us. He would show us things. He would teach us things. He would just spend time with us and love us. And there were no conditions. When I was 13, he passed away, and I really felt like the rug was pulled out from under me in my life, because growing up, I was always trying to pursue my father, and he had visitation rights for us and could see us every other weekend if he chose to, but he would go months at a time without calling or picking us up to see us, visiting us. He would forget our birthdays. He would forget how old we were. And when we would visit, there were always these weird conversations that were brought up about why he didn't abuse my sister and how the court proved him innocent. And I wasn't trying to bring up that trauma or talk about that trauma. I was just trying to have a relationship with my father. And it just seemed like he was always defending himself when we would visit him instead of visiting with us. And he would talk bad about my mom. And so it was just really weird. And the culture in his home was very sexually charged. He would have these nicknames for my stepmom, and he would tell us to call her these nicknames that were vulgar in nature. And he didn't have very good boundaries as far as what type of movies we would watch. We weren't ready to watch PG or R-rated movies, but that he would have those playing when we were very young. And so I just really struggled in that environment, trying to pursue a relationship with him and mean something to him. And even into adulthood, it just never seemed like that was an option. So when I was around six years old, 5 or 6, my mom married my first stepfather. He wasn't a Christian that I remember to begin with, and at some point I stumbled across a pornography magazine that he had, and I took it and hid it in my room, and I would look at it all the time. I felt guilty for stealing it, but I also felt guilty for what I was looking at, but it's like I couldn't stop looking at it. And so that was my first exposure to that type of pornography. And then throughout my childhood, different kids at school, I would go hang out with friends, and they would have pornography that their dad would have in their houses. And so I just kept on growing in my life, this lust-filled desire. And then when the internet came out when I was in high school, shows how old I am, my lust level went up a notch. I was really drawn to that and really became trapped in that. So before I even graduated high school, I would say I was addicted to lust, pornography, different things like that. And this whole time, I was a Christian. You know, Jesus, we'd go to church. I would go to summer camps. I'd go to youth group. I was very involved, very engaged. I really had a heart for the Lord, went on mission trips. I even went, after high school, went to a Christian internship. And during that time, the Christian internship was Team Mania Ministries, and they wouldn't allow you to look at pornography or date or any of that stuff. You would get kicked out if you were caught looking at pornography. So I went 12 months without looking at pornography, but I was still struggling with my thought life. My thinking had not been transformed or renewed. We would have quiet time with the Lord, Bible time every day. That was a requirement. And so I went 12 months thinking, okay, I finally beat this in my life. I'm finally free. And then like a month into college, 2 weeks into college, something like that, I'm already struggling again. After leaving that internship, I'm already struggling with pornography. And I went to a Christian college. There were the same rules as the internship as far as no pornography, but the access to pornography was there. And so I definitely struggled. Toward my junior year in college, I started dating my wife, and I was going to church. I was involved in the ministries at the college and also the churches that I was going to. And I told my wife that I didn't want to date her just to date her. I wanted to pursue her in marriage. And so we went through that process. I asked her father for her hand in marriage. Her brother was my roommate at the internship, and he was also my roommate in college. So I met her several years before we started dating, but we started dating my junior year in college. And then we got married. A week after I graduated with my bachelor's degree, we got married, and we were both still in school, still trying to pursue my master's. And I thought, okay, I finally defeated pornography and lust and all these things. I'm married, I don't need this anymore. But it turns out that didn't work. Not too long after we got married, I was already struggling again with pornography. And it just kept on progressing through my life. I was always going to church. I was always active in the church, serving at churches. And I just continued to struggle. And as I went through my struggle, it just got worse and worse and worse. It started from pornography, external pornography, then it turned into me flirting with other people, then me seeking emotional relationships outside of my marriage online. And I ended up having several emotional affairs, and then it progressed in 2020 where I had a physical affair. And I thought, okay, this is it. I can't do this anymore. There's no way that this has to stop. I can't do this anymore. And I made this vow to myself. I'm done with this. I'm never going to do this again. But I hadn't done anything to truly surrender my heart. Before we moved to Alaska and Oklahoma, I'd gone to a group at our church that was specifically geared toward helping people that have pornography and addiction issues. And then one of my friends in that group also went to another 12-step group outside of that, and I would go with him. But I never could get any freedom. And then by the time I got to Alaska, I even tried some of those types of groups here. I just never could get any freedom, no matter what I tried. But I wasn't really trying the biblical version of healing. I wasn't seeking out healthy people, accountability. I wasn't surrendering my heart. So this whole time I had Jesus as my Savior, but I never really made him my Lord. He was Lord in certain areas of my life, but he wasn't the Lord in every area of my life. I just would not submit, and I would not surrender. So in 2020, I had the physical affair, and then I stopped for a little bit. I went cold turkey again, and then after that, I just started struggling again, started getting back into pornography, started seeking out people online again. And then one time in November, it was like 2 weeks before Thanksgiving of 2020, my wife found a whole bunch of stuff on my phone and asked me what was going on and asked me for the truth. And then she said she'd had enough. We separated. She started going to the Partners in Process group at Creekside on Monday nights. It's the group for women who struggle with people that are sexual addicts. And she started getting help in a place to share her pain and her anger and just the betrayal and destruction that I had caused her. And so she was able to do that. And so she came home after one of those groups, and then that's when she found everything on my phone. And then she said that it's time, I'm done with this, I can't do this. And this was after 16 years of marriage. And so at that point we separated. And so at that point, it really became real to me that I have to change. I have to do something different than I've been doing. I can't keep doing this by myself. So I was very, very reluctant and skeptical because I'd been to groups before, but I started going to the Prodigals group at Creekside on Monday nights. And my wife, who we were already separated, and we were in the same house separated for the first 3 months. And my wife was gracious enough to drive with me and hold my hand when I went into the first Prodigals group. And I was so ashamed, I was so guilty, I was so nervous. And but when I went into that group, I met Rick Price, I met Logan Hufford, and they loved me. They were open to me. They sheltered me and believed in me and encouraged me, and they helped me see that there is hope. And so I just started going to that group, and it was just an amazing thing. It really helped me overcome the fears and the insecurities. And so I started going consistently to the group. I still struggled the first couple of weeks. I had another relapse with pornography, but on the 3rd of December of 2020, I finally found a place where I found some sobriety. And this was the real turning point where I really felt like there was true surrender in my heart. These guys in this group wouldn't let me make excuses. They would call me out on my stuff. They would challenge me. They would give me tough feedback, and they just wouldn't let go. They wouldn't stop holding on to me. So I continued going, and there was you can choose to go into the mentorship program, but if you want to do the mentorship program, you have to go through what they call Step 0. So that's to see if I'm really serious about wanting this change in my life. And so I was willing to do that, and I started the Step 0 process, and that was in late November, early December. I started that, and then fast forward to May of 2021, and my wife had, in March, she had separated. Her and my children left our home at that point, and I had to find a different place to stay. And I continued to go through the process, continued to do the Step 0 assignments and go to meetings and make phone calls and things like that. And my wife had a meeting with my mentor and her mentor in the Partners for Process group, and she in their living room, she said, even if you get into the mentorship program, I'm done. I'm going to go ahead and divorce you. I can't do this anymore. I can't wait anymore. And so I thought that I had hit my rock bottom, but at that point I really hit a different bottom. And I was really struggling mentally, emotionally. And I can't blame anybody else but me. I put my family in this position. I put myself and my family. For 16 years, I'd been making horrible decisions and betraying my wife time and time again, and betraying my children. And so my consequences were showing up. But I was really struggling with just wanting to be alive anymore. I had the fork in the road. It seemed like, do I keep going because I know I still want freedom, I still want to be out of this, or do I kill myself? That was where I was at that point. And just the unconditional love and support that I already had by the men in this group helped me see that the Lord wanted me to live and wanted me to get free. And so I continued to stay in the process. And eventually in June, I got into the mentorship program and continued on with that. And somewhere at the end of June, close to the 1st of July, my wife asked me to watch my kids, put them to bed while she had an appointment outside of the home. So I did that, and she came back, and the Lord nudged her and said, "Do you want to see what I'm doing in him?" And at first she was like, I don't know. I think she was really scared to trust that I was really going to change, because I had just broken her heart so many times. But she opened up to the Lord, and the Lord showed her that I have been really surrendering to the process and being serious about it. And so fast forward to 2023, I'd gone through the entire mentorship program, and we started going to Creekside after my wife and I started the healing process. We started the reconciliation process, and I was still living separately from them. And then in September of 2021, I was able to move back in and to the place that her and my kids lived, and we started to reconcile. But also, or actually that was August that I was able to move back in. But in September, we started coming to Creekside and started plugging in, and started just our journey of a new start in our life. And every person has been so kind at Creekside. Every person has just been so loving and so real, and the Bible has just continued to be preached. But in 2023, I finished the mentorship program, and I've had sexual sobriety since December of 2020. And so it's just been amazing how Jesus has constantly been faithful. Going through the mentorship program, I realized that I blamed God for losing my grandfather when I was 13. I felt like the rug of hope was yanked out from under me. He was the only male figure in my life that actually treated me like a son. And so I had to do some work with the Lord to let go of my thoughts of God. I couldn't see God as a real loving father because of my father. And but as I go through my life, it's not my dad. I blamed him for so many things, but it wasn't him that was making the decisions through the first 16 years of my marriage. It was me. I was the one choosing to harm my family. And I'm just very grateful. I'm very thankful for the freedom that I have in my life right now. It's only been 4 years, but after over 30 years of bondage, those 4 years have been so wonderful. And it's just been amazing to know that there is hope and there is freedom from just such depravity, and finally surrendering to a process and to the Lord and his lordship has been, it's been hard. It's been really hard, but it's been so rewarding. And I'm just so thankful that Jesus didn't give up on me, that he would leave the 99 to come after somebody like me. And so I just want to thank God for his faithfulness. And I want to thank my wife for her faithfulness to the Lord and her obedience to choose healthy living over abuse. And she's really amazing. And you know, I can be grateful, and I can share that we've been married for 20 years. We were just about on the cusp of divorce and fully splitting up, but God rescued us. He rescued our marriage. And so it's just been an amazing thing to see just how powerful God's love really is. You know, that song we sing sometimes, love changes everything. It's not just words. And I just want to close with a verse that, you know, sticks out. It's Revelation 12:11. And it says, and they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. And they did not love their lives to the death. And I can say that I get nervous talking in front of people or talking where other people are going to hear certain things, especially this. This is very, very raw and emotional things that I'm going into. And so, but this is what God has done. And so it's not about me, it's about God, it's about God's love. And I want to share that with whoever needs to hear it. And I just thank the Lord. Thank you, Jesus, for your love and your healing power. And I give God all the glory. Thank you for listening.